Hello, friends. Welcome back to the PlodCast. It's been, 2 weeks. I've been pouting the entire time, still pouting. I should say, if you haven't listened to the last episode of the PlodCast, you should probably do that, or some of this isn't going to make any sense at all. When I left last, I was pouting about the national championship and slam poetry in general. I was complaining about the game, how the scoring system is all fucked up. And yeah, I was upset. I was in a hissy fit. I was throwing a tantrum online for everyone to hear. I was embarrassing myself and I was falling apart. But yeah, just some shit I needed to get off my chest. And part two is supposed to be a scathing opus, a demolition of slam poetry. And maybe that'll happen, but I'm not sure. What it'll probably be is more hissy fit and some poetry that I wrote in an angrier time. Times where you get upset that you've lost, or someone acts like an idiot, or somebody says something to you that rubs you the wrong way, or you see, some sort of a behavior from a poet that just doesn't, it doesn't echo their work, or something that just leaves you with a foul taste in your mouth. So I got some of those, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the people that I've met along the way in the slam poetry community. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to go there. But I'm going to rhyme off some scenarios that I think are pretty gross, and maybe I'll pepper them in between angry poems. So yeah, where do we begin? I've looked over the stuff. Again, we're already out of time. So we're going to get right into it. This piece I wrote maybe 2-3 years in to slam poetry, and I was having a hard time, I guess, not so much getting along with people, but making connections, making real connections with people, because the conversations that we'd have outside smoking, or, in between the poems and whatever, were not good. It's like I was trapped there, like it was torture to sit there and deal with some of the people that I've met along the way. And it's just the worst. So yeah, I wrote this poem. It's more optimistic than anything else you're going to hear today, I promise that. It's a character, like I'm the character, but this is a character who wants to be a part of, what's going on, and wants to listen to all of this and wants to help, but doesn't know where to begin, or doesn't know if he wants this in his existence. I think that's about it. The poem kind of speaks for itself, as always. That happens on the PlodCast. Here we go. This poem is called... Man, I can't even remember what this poem's called. Terrible. I'm going to let this count down to 5, and if I don't remember, I'm just going to play the poem. I don't have it. I don't have the title. Here we go. Here's this poem. I'll come back with it, because once I hear it, I'll know. On the surface, I'm just soaked in I don't give a fuck. But underneath, I am a beacon of compassion for sad stories lost in the darkness of their own narrative. I speak in peaks to illuminate valleys. I Rumpelstiltskin spin a silver lining from every single last straw. I calm Act 1 conflict from reason X without ever knowing the reasons why. I solve central problems before great defeats, so Act 3 does not exist, and moral arcs are just vertical lines. I wish every setting could be serene. I wish every dark and stormy described a romantic scene spent indoors defining and describing a dialogue of love. I wish I could make it rain happily ever afters, so sequels had no reason to exist.
obsolete without conflict or the agony of antagonism. I wish we were all heroes without stories, without novels of neuroses, without Bibles of bad situations and tomes of torment, chapbooks of challenges riddled with pages of problems. I want to turn every tragedy into a 2-sentence story that simply reads, "They were fucking happy. The end." So if life is a play, and all the world's a stage, I'll be in the wings waiting to jerk the curtain midway through Act 1 or yell cut to freeze a tableau of a plot powerful with positive possibility, promising potential. Antagonists yet to be introduced are simply strangers. Editing is hard, gentle reader. I can't write your issues by rewriting your issues, so I keep you at arm's length. There was no more room in my story for conflict, and additional antagonists would be better served staying strangers soaked in the bliss of I don't give a fuck. My story is suffixed with suffering, prefixed by pain, brimming with conflict, and begging for crossover. I don't want my private, dark, and stormy to flood your bright and sunny any more than I want the story of my life to have a bailout ending where it turns out to all just be a dream. My pages are weathered now, my spine is weak, and my lessons are dog-eared at close intervals. I am a dark, towering piece of literature with volumes of problems. I don't need any pages from your book, and you surely don't want to take a page from mine. So let us just remain unintroduced antagonists, struggling strangers with too few solutions to solve subplot conflict. I feel for you, gentle reader. I just wish I had more time to write.
Time to write. Damn it. It was on the tip of my tongue. Time to write. I do. I wish I had more time to write. I wish I could insert my hand into the life of everyone with problems and rearrange the problems and make it so that they aren't there. I can't. I don't have that. And I don't have enough time. I guess it is time. I don't know. Time to help. I don't want to hear everybody's problems. I have my own set of problems. But I wish I could help, and it'd be really cool if I could. But I can't. So I keep everybody at arm's length because I don't want some of the people that I've met involved in my life. Some people seem unpredictable, fucking unbalanced, genuinely confused. And none of these things, maybe it's not their fault. I don't know. I don't know the whole deal. Of course, it's not their fault all of the time. I don't know the whole story. All I can do is know what you present in your poetry, and I take that at face value. I believe that to be true. So if you contradict yourself in your own work or in the person that you are, I don't respect you. I don't know what more I can say. Like, how can I believe the things that you tell me in conversation and then go up and present to the world a completely different character? And I get that it's performance poetry and all of that, but as a performance poet, and I've done it, I've turned on the break in the voice to mimic crying, or you ham it up for the performance. So I understand that, but sometimes someone's just a piece of shit. And that's how it is. And I don't have to have that in my world. I don't want that. Here's an example. There was a poet who, before their poem, talked about being away from home and how difficult it was to be away. There was a birthday that was happening. And this was in a specific month, the month of the competition. And then I happened to be at another competition in the same year, maybe 4, 6, 8 months later, and that poet did the same thing, made the same preface about how hard it was to be away from home during a birthday, and it was the same birthday, the same family member. And yeah, that was gross. I pointed it out, laughed at it, and but at the same time, the game player in me was kind of like, nice trick. Not bad. Not bad. But now how can I look that person in the face and want to have a genuine conversation with that person? That's ridiculous. I can't do that. I have a hard time. the stories, my God, in half an hour. You can't get them all in. Um, I've personally had my work judged for being too loud. Um, Obviously, I'm just an angry, cisgendered, straight white guy. Um, so I've taken some flack, and I think that's something that's getting worse. Um, and there's people far more sensitive than me. So if I'm, and it's, I can take a good white joke. I like that. But when it's over and over bombardment and things that, I do my best to try and avoid. I do my best to help and be an ally in all facets and I try to do all the right things and correct awful behavior when I see it and when I'm not, in danger for doing so. And, you just get shit on sometimes. And in a community where everyone is supposed to feel welcomed, safe, it's weird to feel so, like you got to walk on eggshells or you can't, um, you can't voice your opinion on Facebook, your true opinion, stuff like that, in fear that you'll get shredded by a community that you need to fit into if you want to be a part of. You need to play the game and schmooze with everybody and be a friend and say hello. And it's really difficult if you're um, antisocial, or I don't have to get along with everybody. I don't know. Anyway, here's a poem. It's called This Poem. It's a metaphor for something.
This poem was written on a white napkin, but isn't bitter with poems that weren't. This poem was written in black, but has no problem embracing or tasting the rainbow. This poem was beaten into the poem that it is today. Some people call that editing. Some people call that child abuse. This poem carries baggage. This poem was scolded for being too loud, but never raised a syllable to its whispered brothers and sisters. This poem was told, and I quote, "It's not that I don't respect what you do. It's just that, as a woman, it's hard to listen to." This poem did nothing but exist. Still got its feelings hurt. This poem feels no jealousy, and this poem knows how to mind its own business. But this poem does get agitated, aggravated, infuriated, berated, hated, debated, and just keeps waiting. This poem keeps its eyes down. This poem laughs, cries, and dies a little on the car ride home, the only real safe space. This poem is masculine, but very sensitive. This poem overeats before bedtime. This poem has dry skin. This poem smokes too much. This poem has a bad sense of direction and often feels lost. This poem is antisocial. This poem wants to be a superhero and hates being called little. This poem is incendiary and ready to blow. This poem just wants to go home. This poem hates its job and doesn't get enough sleep. This poem wakes up early. This poem lives behind a curtain of what could be, but probably won't. This poem was provoked, and this poem walked away. This poem knows its worth. Don't bother scoring this poem. You don't have the right. Don't judge this poem. This poem never judged you. It just existed. This poem has been shit on. This poem has had enough. This poem isn't pretty. This poem's had its dreams crushed by other poems. This poem is broken. But that doesn't make it any less of a poem.
I think it's ironic that a community so determined to create a safe space has ended up creating an environment for certain groups of people that isn't welcoming. It doesn't feel good. You just get stepped on sometimes. There was a fella in one of the communities who came and said some misogynistic stuff. And I'm not going to say that it wasn't misogynistic. It was. But he got absolutely destroyed on the internet, on Facebook, and just shredded by an entire community that ganged up on this poor dude. And what he said was awful, but he came to the forum. It was the first time he'd been to a slam, and that's not a scenario where this person should be just destroyed verbally publicly on the internet, maybe taken aside. Hey, that's not cool, and here's the reasons why. Here's how that makes other people feel. Around here, that's not going to fly. And then he has the time to adjust accordingly, rather than never come back and think poorly of the whole medium and everything that all of us do. And that's a true story. That shit happened. So we're continuing to slip these horrific anecdotes in. Here's one that made me crazy. A poet requested to be the feature at one of the slams and got a letter back saying that they were focusing on poets of a different color. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that one. I ultimately wrote it off to, that's none of my business. I wasn't the poet. And whatever that poet wants to do with that information, hey, that's their prerogative. None of my business. Anyway, sometimes you get crazy. These things just are too much sometimes. This poem's about that.
I've been in therapy for years. 4 years of monthly group therapy, retelling my torment, reliving a life lost in the condemned shadows of memory, forced to listen to the wailings of the other deranged patients. I'm out of patience. There are no doctors here. Only the 5-fingered hand of judgment. Before this all goes 6s and 7s, I'm taking 5. I don't want your sympathy. You're not stealing any more of mine. Time is too short to share, and we're only exploiting ourselves to find the points in all this. What's the point of all this? Oral fixation, abomination. I just want to hear story. Everyone here sad. There's no inspiration here, just varying degrees of failure. The winners are really the losers, and all the help is fake. I needed a shot in the arm, not a shot in the arm. And if all you need is a shot in the arm, you don't belong here. But everyone belongs here. Why would anyone want to be here? This company loves misery. We play the game and trudge the same sideways cyclical snake figure 8 in hopes of finding the right piece to make the judgment less severe. I'm going over the wall. This is driving me up.
It makes you crazy. Sometimes you get crazy. Just dealing with everything that shouldn't be part of a poetry contest. It is so far from poetic. It's so far from useful. Like I don't know, it's a disaster. And that's not to say that the audience doesn't have a good time. That this collection of broken ass people doesn't put on a fantastic show. So I guess at the end of the day, we're putting on a show. But I don't know, to get wrapped up in all this, to obsess over it, to focus time and resources on it that could be spent elsewhere, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm going to do one more poem. One more piece, and then I'm going to put this negativity to bed and talk about something great that did happen at the festival. I can't remember what this poem's called either. It's very hot, and I'm exhausted just even talking about all this shenanigans and this poetry crap. And I can't wait to finish this episode and get on to something positive when we come back with the PlodCast next episode. We're going to go back to the 8-bit backtrack. I got a good one lined up. I haven't even written it yet, but I've chosen the game, and I know that you're going to like it if you've played this game. The game is Rocket League, so that's happening. 8-bit backtrack, Rocket League. We're going to talk about a milestone that happened with the Boys of Thunder. What a tease, right? The Boys of Thunder, what? Oh my god. Yeah, we passed a cool milestone. It popped up in my Facebook memories, so we're going to talk about that and maybe play a BOT track just for shits. Um, and yeah, back on track. Anyway, I have to wallow just a little bit more. This is a poem about Poetry Slam.
Maybe there's nothing left to say. Maybe the words are just getting in the way. Maybe when language becomes your religion, polytheism leaves you spread too thin. Maybe silence is hell. Maybe parable poems give you faith, but you are no Messiah miracle worker. More like a Polaroid vomiting the snapshots. A camera is not an activist, and a picture is not a weapon. A poem is not a carried cross, and a combined score out of 30 is no crown of thorns. Loaded poets pointed into crowds of $5 bills. You are not walking on water. If language is your religion, promoters become gods. There was no cover to hear Moses read the commandments, and Jesus never took a time penalty. If language is your religion, then entertainment should be your God. Earn your halo with laughter and your wings with catharsis. Make the crowd feel. They paid $5 to feel. So the least you can do is give them $5 worth of yourself.
I like to think I always gave at least $5. That wraps up our negative. All of the negative. I said it. Some of these poems I didn't think would see the light of day. But my PlodCast, my rules. I'm not going to be oppressed on my own PlodCast. That's ridiculous. That's just silliness. So there's those poems. My trip at the festival was fantastic, and I know I've been pouty in all of this, but I had fun. Slam poetry as a whole has opened so many doors through networking with people outside of the community and some of the people inside the community. A lot of doors opened. I did make a bunch of really close friends. So as much as I make it seem like everyone's fucking crazy, there are a handful of people who I hold very near and dear to my heart. Shout outs to them. Again, no naming names. See, that goes both ways. Now you're like, fuck, I wonder if he's talking about me. Nah, probably not. Is he? Isn't he? Is he? Isn't he? Poetry Slam. I feel about Poetry Slam the way I feel about Marvel Puzzle Quest. I'm like, oh, you should try it, but don't try it too hard because you might get sucked in and wrapped up in the fucking shenanigans. So I can't remember what episode of the podcast that was, but whatever one where the 8-bit backtrack was Marvel Puzzle Quest, that's a microcosm for how I feel about Poetry Slam as a whole. Anyway, let's talk about this revelation that I've been teasing for 2 episodes now. So I'm at the festival and I've lost mathematically. It's day whatever 4 and I'm out. It's official. And I'm cranky and I'm at the after party and everything's, going all right and I'm still in a funk. I kind of got my head down. So I start talking about scores and the score system and how it's BS and score creep and bout draw and all the shit we talked about last episode. And I'm complaining about journal entry poetry where there's no device. This is just what happened to you. And then. And the guy that I'm talking to turns to me and says, yeah, but this shit is saving people's lives. I paused and I took in what he said. And he said it with not even a conviction, just like he's not telling me, he's not saying this to tell me, he's saying this because this is what he truly believes. And it was just so nonchalant and matter of fact, that the fact that some of these people get to go on stage and tell their story, then somebody else hears it and has maybe been through it, and that person says to the poet, hey, have you tried this resource that you may or may not have heard of? And that poet says, no, I never thought of that. They try said resource and get better. And that's just one scenario where Slam poetry could legit save somebody's life. I thought that was really cool. And I came upon slam poetry at a pivotal point in my life. I don't think slam poetry saved my life, but I don't know. Some of the shit that I was able to get off my chest helped. For sure, it helped. Therapeutic. And as you come over the other side, you look back and realize that shit, maybe that was pretty important. So for everybody that's doing this, for whatever the reasons are, fame, therapy, money, money. Good luck. I mean, use the medium for what it is, and recognize that there might not be a light at the end of the tunnel through this medium, but you may find your own personal light. My God, what is happening right now? I've become some sort of inspirational speaker in the last 5 minutes, but I did want to turn this all right around on its head because I was feeling so shitty about everything, and that's not to say that I don't still feel shitty about some of the people that I've met, because some people are fucking just horrible. But as a whole, the game, the experience, and its value, it's good. It's worth it, and it's good. So do it. Me, I'm walking away. I'm not retiring. You can't retire from a hobby. I'll probably come back in like 2 months. I'll be like, no, you know what? I think I'm going to enter that competition. But no, for now, realistically, I'm done. I've achieved all the things that I think I can achieve. A national title is such a roll of the dice to go there and get a crap boat draw, and there you go. Because score creep, I'm not spending any more vacation weeks. I'm not using up any more of my resources to get to these giant festivals because it's too much of a gamble. So I am out for now. Here's a song about that. I actually wrote this song a few years ago and then came back. So this is why I say that I'll probably be back, but not anytime soon.
I'm leaving you alone, and I want you to know I won't look back when I go. I'm leaving you alone, and I want you to know I won't look back when I go. It's been so rough now, I've had enough. I put up with so much of this show. It's been so rough now, I've had enough. I put up with so much of this show. I found love for the words, all the nouns and all the verbs, and I put in so much work, it's absurd. I found love for the words, all the nouns and all the verbs, and I put in so much work, it's absurd. I found my voice now, I have no choice. I was blessed with this gift, I just came here to make noise. And I might miss my friends, but I can't pretend that there's a means or an end to this show. That there's a means or an end to this show. So I'm leaving you alone, and I want you to know I won't look back when I go. I'm leaving you alone, and I want you to know I won't look back when I go. I won't look back when I go. I won't look back when I go. I won't look back when I go.
Thank you for listening to this 2-part PlodCast, friends. This was our milestone 10th episode. Woo! Fantastic. Slam poetry. Maybe it's dead for me. I don't know. Stay tuned, I guess. We'll see. Moving forward, we're going to be back with a PlodCast that I promise won't be as heavy as some of the parts of this one. We're just going to keep it light next time and have fun. So thank you again for coming on this slam poetry bashing journey with me. Follow me on Twitter at Pojob, Poejob. Join my Facebook group if you haven't yet. I know some of you listening who probably listened to the last one because it was about slam poetry aren't in my group because you hate my guts. But that's okay. I got all sorts of shit going on. I gotta start writing for this haunted house. We gotta get that in order. We got ghost stories coming up. We got camping trips. We're doing it big. So if you're listening because you're a hater, keep hating, sucker. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.